Today I wanted to go over the different graph editor manipulation tools that are available in the Tweeners, and let's start with Tweens because this is the most fundamental and the most basic of them all. So basically what Tweens does is it will take your pose and it'll either blend it to the pose prior or to the pose after it based upon a percentage set. So say I wanted this pose to favor the beginning pose, I would just hit negative 0.8 and you'll see after I press enter that it snaps and it favors this pose over here. And I could also do it the opposite way. Say I wanted it to favor the other pose, I can hit like 0.7 or something and then it'll favor this one. So Tweens is super helpful for creating ease ins and ease outs into your poses. I usually use 80s and 70s. Try not to use 50s or 60s as much because your spacing will be too even, but that is a really nice way to get your curves to be clean and ease in and out. Now, blend to neighbor functions similarly, however, instead of considering two keys at the same time, it only considers the key you're on and then the one you're blending to. So let me grab the TY just to make it super clear. I'll make it taller. So if I use blend to neighbor, it'll take this pose and blend it to either one, and it'll still maintain a little bit of the original pose. Tweens would override it, but blend, see how it'll blend down to this one. If I go all the way, they're the same. It's a little hard to see there. They're the same, but if I wanted to blend to the other one, oops, you'll see how it can do that, but it'll still not completely lose its height, versus if I were to do like Tweens and blend, it'll snap. See, because it's calculating the new pose based upon this and this, not the key you're making. So that's the main difference between these two. I use them all the time. Then there is push pull. So this is like a scaling tool. So basically what this will do is it will take your keys you select and scale them up or down instead of blending them. So for example, see how I can make my TY really big? I'm just scaling them up. Or I could scale them down if I wanted to do that. And that would kind of function like blend to neighbor in a way, but you'll see how the curves don't maintain their shape. And that's because it's scaling. It's not necessarily blending them along the lines. But this is super helpful for creating bigger variations within your cycles, things like that, because it can scale away from this instead of only towards this. Now this one here, blend relative, is a type of scaling, but it functions differently. And you'll see how when I do it, it will maintain this shape. So if I move it down, basically taking this key and connecting it to that one, and whatever the curve in between is will scale down relative to this. So I can do it and move it completely down, and these curves still have their shape. So let me do that again. They still maintain their progression that's the same. So it basically just connects them to the neighbor. That's super helpful for, say, you have repositioned something in your pose. So this is the base pose where everything starts off, and what if I realize, oh hey, I actually want it to be over here? Well, instead of going and manually like redoing everything, I can just grab this, scale it all the way down, and now I have the same animation but from this different angle instead. So that's super helpful. Blend to ease functions almost exactly like blend to neighbor, except that it adds ease into your poses. So for example, if I take this arc here, you'll see how it'll then kind of become a curve pointing down towards screen left. So because it's easing towards that pose on the left. And if I compare that to blend to neighbor, just to illustrate the example, you'll see how blend to neighbor kind of keeps that curve, that bump, but blend to neighbor, or blend to ease, because it's easing, will then change that. So that can be very helpful for creating ease-ins and ease-outs of your poses. Now the last tool is called smooth rough, and it's another type of scaling tool. It will basically either make your curves more smooth or more rough based upon how you scale them, and it can be helpful for creating more variation if your cycles are feeling too monotonous. I personally don't use it, but it can be helpful if you do need it. So those are the types of tools that are available to you. I hope you found this video helpful, and as always, happy animating!